Hi, what's up? Nicole Eichinger here with Nutrition's My Life. We're going to be going over thyroid supporting food today in today's episode. And so this is something that I feel like most people really want to know. Last week we discussed anti-inflammatory diets, the anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Basically what I like to say is like their foundation diet, right? So you have this foundation diet where you want to include these foods that are going to help your body reduce inflammation and just give your body the key nutrition that it needs. But now that you are here and we know, okay, I have this foundation diet that I'm going to be going over and I know what I'm going to be doing. Now we have to kind of take it up to the next level, and we're going to start to amplify things and enhance it, whatever you want to say, by meeting your nutrient demands, by getting your thyroid supporting foods in. And so in today's episode, we're going to be sharing all sorts of thyroid supporting foods. And so this is recording for the podcast and the YouTube channel. So if you want to have a visual to be able to see everything, I'm going to be putting my YouTube channel in the links, so that way, or in the notes, so that way y'all can link it and hop in and look at everything. And I am referring everything off of my book, The Thyroid Healthy Guide. So these are going to be actually pages from my book that we're going to be going over, and we're going to kind of be going through them a little bit more, some are a little bit faster than the others, but I want to make sure that y'all have a good understanding of kind of what the thyroid is and what we need to be doing to support it. So I'm going to share my screen with y'all, and here in just a second. All right. So we're going to be going over thyroid supporting foods. And the first thing we're going to be going over kind of like, what is the thyroid? Why do we need to know about it? All of that. So as I'm getting set up here on YouTube, let me get this for you guys. Okay. Boom. As it's doing. Okay, so what is the thyroid's job? So the thyroid is a butterfly-shaped gland that is responsible for the metabolism of almost every cell in your body. This means improving your thyroid health requires focusing on more than just the thyroid gland. And I think that this is where a lot of people kind of get lost. And this is where doctors kind of just like stop at it, right? They just say, hey, here's your TSH, your T4 is kind of out of whack a little bit. Let me do the adjustments of your medication. We'll get to where you want. Come back in a couple weeks and we're gonna we'll readjust then. But the crazy part is that it's not. We can't just say medicine is the only thing. Yes, definitely take your medicine, do everything. I'm not here to tell you to stop taking your thyroid medicine, but I'm here to say that we can make that thyroid medicine work better for you. I'm here to say that there are other tools that we can use in addition to your medication to get you to a better place, so that way you feel like you're back in control of your health. And so the thyroid hormones regulate vital body functions, including breathing, heart rate, central and peripheral nervous system, your body weight, muscle strength. That's crazy, right? Your menstrual cycles, body temperature, your cholesterol levels, your metabolic rate, and so much more. So it is really important for us to start to understand how the thyroid works in general. And so making that active thyroid hormone actually starts in the brain, in the hypothalamus, and produces a hormone called TRH, or thyrotropin releasing hormone. This stimulates the pituitary gland to then tell I'm sorry, I'm trying to get this all set up for people over here. So this then stimulates the pituitary gland to make the hormone most people are familiar with, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone, or your TSH. And so TSH then stimulates the thyroid. So you get your pituitary then to stimulate the thyroid. And in fact, only 90% of the hormones that are produced in the thyroid are actually the T4, or the inactive. So that means that you then need to still have that T4 to T3 conversion happening. So even if you don't have a thyroid, you have a way to impact your thyroid health, even just so you can optimize these two organs, the liver, your gut health, all of this. So we're going to be diving more into this. So the liver plays a crucial role in thyroid health. So more T4 to T3 conversion actually happens in the liver than anywhere else in the body. And so, like I said, we're going to be going through these pretty fast, but if you want a hard copy of all of this, this is all in my book, the Healthy Thyroid Guide. So we're kind of getting all of that from there. So if you're the type of person that eats steak the size of their head, eats fast food at most meals, skips breakfast often, and drinks alcohol all the time, you might have a little bit of liver damage. And I should also add in your blood sugar regulation. So the liver has over 500 vital roles in the body. And one of them is that conversion of T4 to T3. So fortunately, many of the anti-inflammatory foods discussed in this book also support the liver. So we're just going to dive through into the liver supporting tips. So we want to use the plate method for more plants and less meat. And I'll dive more into this in a little bit. We discussed this briefly last week when we talked about the anti-inflammatory diet, but this is right here. We're going to incorporate foods really rich in antioxidants. And so antioxidants are the colors in our foods. And the reason why we're doing this is because we want to support that liver, so that way our thyroid hormones start to do that conversion, because that T3 is that active hormone. That's our metabolism. That's our energy. That's us feeling better. And so if we can incorporate foods that are rich in antioxidants, specifically the antioxidant glutathione, it plays a really big role in the detoxification and antioxidant systems of our cells. So some of these foods are like beets, spinach, blueberries. Those are my top favorite antioxidant and glutathione rich foods. But honestly, all antioxidants, all the colors are going to be helpful for us. You want to consistently eat throughout the day to help stabilize your blood sugar. And we definitely want to make sure that we're including enough water into our diet. So some of the tips that I recommend are setting reminders on your phone to drink water. I know that sounds so simple, but definitely getting a straw, something along those lines, put water. I know that seems so simple, but don't forget how simple water is. Meal prep or double a dinner recipe so you can have lunches prepared for the next day. Many times we don't eat the way we want to eat just because we're not prepared enough. So try to eat the rainbow at every meal. So then about 20 to 30% of the conversion of T4 to T3 actually occurs within the digestive lining. So if you improving your digestive tract health can benefit you in many ways. It actually helps you absorb the nutrition better, decrease your risk of autoimmunity. That's actually the ability of your body to attack itself. It decreases inflammation, improves hormone levels, improves cholesterol levels, may decrease anxiety and stress, and can even lead to weight loss. So these are my gut health 101 tips. So prebiotic containing foods. So from this first aisle right here, which are your leeks, oats, your asparagus, onions, garlic. Those are going to be really good prebiotic foods or fiber rich foods. And then what happens is that healthy bacteria, those probiotics, they end up then eating the fiber in these prebiotics. And when we make sure we have enough water on board, and this can be through tea, this can be including water rich foods like your oranges and kiwis and cantaloupes, obviously just drinking lots of water throughout the day, it promotes the right environment for that healthy bacteria then to eat the fiber in our food and then repair our gut wall. So we really want that gut wall repairing to start happening, because that's where a lot of people end up missing their nutrition aspect of things kind of crumbles right there. So we're going to kind of stop right here talking about digestion, and then we're going to be diving into the actual thyroid supporting foods again. Let me exit out of here. For y'all on my podcast, just bear with me 2 seconds. And like I said, this is something that we really want to make aware of as far as the thyroid supporting foods. We're going to have that anti-inflammatory diet. We know that we need to support our liver. We need to support our digestive tract. And now we're going to talk more about the thyroid supporting nutrients. And y'all, this all goes to in addition to having proper sleep, having less stress, right? There's multiple other components. We're just talking the very simple of how the thyroid is working. And we're talking very simple of how thyroid supporting nutrients. Again, if you want to learn more, I have my book, the Healthy Thyroid Guide, that you can really dive more into that to actually figure out what your body is needing. So selenium is one of the ones that I am a big fan of, and I do not want y'all to be taking selenium in a supplement. There's so many sources of food out there, but selenium is one of the most potent antioxidants, and it is really helpful with reducing inflammation. And so I have a few stories about selenium that always comes to mind. And the first is about a professor of mine back in college. He studied selenium, wrote his own biochemistry book, and traveled the world helping people purify water with selenium. This mineral always fascinated me because of his passion for it. And I could never imagine back then how big of an impact this mineral would have on my career as a dietitian, or even on my own personal health. The other story is about how I first fell in love with the powerful selenium and how it can be used as a tool in someone's health. So inflammation lowers the ability to make a protein called albumin. And when I worked in the dialysis clinic, I was graded, so to speak, on the quality of albumins patients had. I remember Dr. Z, that's not her name, but we're gonna we're just gonna use that, telling me she's never had a good albumin and probably never will. I took that as a challenge. I was gonna help my patient with her inflammation and help her feel better in the process. I researched and found a study that showed just three Brazil nuts a day was enough to reduce inflammation in this dialysis patient. And so that's something that I highly recommend, is just making sure that we are including these thyroid supporting foods like selenium, because selenium can definitely increase our ability to actually have a better chance of reducing inflammation. So I brought the study to my patient and I said, hey, we're trying this. She was up for it, and her daughter helped remind her every day to eat her 3 Brazil nuts. And sure enough, her albumin for 3 months consecutively after we started was either at or above her goal albumin. And the doctor was shocked. I know this book is not about someone on dialysis, but this just shows how potent the selenium is as an antioxidant and how amazing food can be for us. So selenium is an essential trace mineral that must be obtained by the diet. And the selenium concentration is higher in the thyroid gland than it is any other organ in the body. So low levels of selenium have been shown to increase the risk of goiters. So this is really important if you have a goiter, right? Or have had a history of goiters. There's evidence that selenium supplementation does reduce the TPO, or the thyroid peroxidase antibodies, in level patients with autoimmune thyroiditis. So, however, I'm a fan of food first. And so you can see that the RDA for selenium in adults is 55 micrograms daily. 1 Brazil nut contains 68 to 91 micrograms. So just 1 Brazil nut a day gives you what your body needs. And so we go up a little bit more by saying 2 to 3. So that way we have that ability to protect the thyroid. Selenium is also a big role in our immune system by making something called selenoproteins, which is how it actually regulates our inflammatory response. So this is why it's super important. So some foods that are rich in selenium, like I said, Brazil nuts. You can also do grass-fed beef, legumes. We're just going through, we can do tuna, we can do whole grains, and sunflower seeds. So let's talk about thyroid supporting nutrients a little bit more, and the sense of tyrosine and iodine. So the use of the amino acid tyrosine from the foods we eat actually starts helping to make the thyroid hormones. So when we talk about T4 and T3, those are tyrosine with iodines added onto it. And so that's really important. So now the important thing, though, is that someone who has Graves' disease, we actually want to try to reduce or omit the amount of tyrosine and iodine foods that are on board. However, this is why it's important to meet with a dietitian. I have a client currently who was diagnosed hypo, who is showing signs of hyperthyroidism, but has a goiter. And so we are treating the goiter first by protecting the selenium, protecting it with selenium and iodine. Then we're going to reevaluate how much she's receiving based on her diet intake and see on the next time that she gets an ultrasound and measure up to see if we need to reduce the amount of iodine that she has on board. But currently at this moment, we're trying to reduce the goiter that's in her. And so, like I said, this is very tricky with a lot of people because we want to do this on our own. But there are some things that sometimes having a health professional that is trained in this can be really helpful and beneficial for. So tyrosine rich foods, because it's tricky because you're like, okay, tyrosine rich foods like fish, right? Some salmon, that's super healthy for me. But if you have Graves' disease, you're just kind of putting more fuel on the fire, and you can just give more tools for your body to just make too much of those thyroid supporting hormones. Almonds are another good form. Soy foods. This is another reason why if you are hypothyroid, have Hashimoto's, soy food is totally fine for you to eat. Totally fine for you to eat. Pumpkin seeds are also another. And let's talk about the iodine rich foods. So when it comes to goiters or thyroid disorders, people that have a thyroid disorder, we have to be very careful. We don't want too much iodine because that can suppress the thyroid. If we get too much, too little or too much, either way, so not enough iodine or way too much, they can actually have a negative impact on the thyroid. So it's best to be consistent about it. And the reason why, again, this is why I don't like supplements, is because if you take a supplement of it and then you eat a food that's rich in iodine, you can send yourself too much overboard. So something as simple as incorporating either iodized salt in your day. And a lot of, actually, the American diet has almost too much iodine in its diet because it's iodized salt is in our fast food restaurants, right? Our prepackaged meals. Highly processed foods are going to be rich in iodine, which is great to help our bodies prevent that, right? If we're eating it in small parts. But sometimes what happens is that we're eating, we go and grab, breakfast sandwiches at a fast food. And then we go out to lunch with work buddies at lunchtime. And then it's back to, eating at home, and maybe you didn't have time to cook. So you have something that's pre-frozen, right? Or that's frozen, and then you toss that in the oven. All of those could be really rich in iodine. So this is why now taking, control and cooking as much as you can from home gives you that control to say, okay, today I'm going to have some seaweed. Today I'm going to have some tuna. Maybe I'm going to have some eggs or some yogurt or some of that iodized salt. And that way you have an ability to kind of make that control over what you want. We also want a diet rich in zinc. So zinc plays multiple key roles in the thyroid hormones by regulating TSH. It also influences the levels of T4 and T3. Zinc is an essential mineral that we must eat. So people that have low zinc may also have a loss of appetite, have hair loss, abnormalities to the nail, like those white lines. And so we want to make sure that we're incorporating zinc rich foods into our diet as much as possible. So grass-fed beef is an example of a good zinc rich food, right? We talked about how good it was for our tyrosine as well. Same thing with beans. So this is why beans and grass-fed beef, like you'll hear these two kind of repeated over and over again throughout this, because they just hit so many key points with thyroid supporting nutrients. So we have our grass-fed beef, we have beans, we have nuts, we have whole grains. And a lot of people will get after me and say, beans, they have phytates, they have lectins, you can't eat those. But y'all, if we cook those foods, they're not an issue anymore. And a lot of the nuts that we end up eating are what, dry roasted. And so if they're dry roasted, they're also going to have no issues of those anti-nutrients. And so eat your foods, y'all. It's don't worry about the possible anti-nutrients. If we have enough of a wide variety of these foods, we're going to be able to eat those foods and get the key nutrients that we need. And sometimes we have to kind of weigh our risk and benefits, and the risk of not eating those, like it's not worth it, right? The risk of eating them outweighs those risk of not. So the next nutrient we're going to be talking about is iron. So iron is a metal that our bodies need to receive through our diets. Iron's major role in the body is actually to help produce hemoglobin. And then hemoglobin allows the oxygen to be transferred to different parts of the body, organs, muscles, tissues. And so if you actually have a low iron or anemia, it can actually be a major factor for impaired thyroid hormone metabolism. Anemia by itself is exhausting, and then you then you add the thyroid exhaustion on top about it. Oh my gosh, it's horrible. I actually had about 6 months ago, I had an issue where I became anemic from donating blood, and that was the first time I actually became anemic post donating, and I was so exhausted, and then I went to the doctors. My TSH had jumped up to like 4.6. And so 4.6 isn't like excessive, but it was enough for my body to really feel tired, really feel bad. And it just like, I felt like I was sick. I was like, there has to be something wrong with me. And it was just my anemia. Because again, that T3 is our gas pedal to the car. So if the conversion of T4 to T3 is being put like a halt onto that because we are anemic, that's going to make us feel really, really tired. And I've seen anemia happen many times, not from the lack of iron in the diet, but from eating too much dairy. So this is why I like to limit our dairy. One of the reasons why I like to limit dairy. I'm not saying that you have to avoid it altogether, but we're going to limit it so that way we have a better chance of having more iron, because calcium blocks or inhibits iron from being absorbed. And vitamin C actually helps the body absorb it. So iron-rich foods could be like found in, our plant items like spinach and legumes. But it's also found in the most readily available or readily absorbable is in that grass-fed beef and beef. Surprisingly, dried apricots are also a great source. And a quick, easy tip to help out with any iron deficiency or anemia on board: get a cast iron skillet and cook most of your meals in a cast iron skillet. This morning I had an egg taco, and so the tortilla needed to be cooked up. I did that on a flat cast iron skillet. Then I cooked my egg in a cast iron skillet, so that way I had a better chance of having more iron. Not only that, it's nonstick, it's super easy, it's an easy cleanup. It's just a simple, easy way to eat. The next nutrient that is really important for the thyroid are omega-3 fatty acids. And these are one of my favorite nutrients because they're so crucial in the fight against inflammation. So omega-3 fatty acids are a part of a fat group called polyunsaturated fatty acids, or PUFAs. PUFAs are made up of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, and the body really likes the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids, like a 2-to-1 or a 4-to-1 ratio. However, the Western diet many people consume is upwards of a 16-to-1 ratio. So let that sink in. That means that we're consuming so many omega-6s. So omega-6 by themselves are not pro-inflammatory at all. So that's like the main fat in canola oil. Canola oil by itself, not inflammatory at all. Let me say it again, not inflammatory. So it can be a great oil to use in our cooking. But the problem lies when we do not have enough of the omega-3 fatty acids to get that ratio of 2-to-1 or the 4-to-1 that our bodies really enjoy. So that's why it's really important for us to include like the grass-fed beef because that has more omega-3 fatty acids than a conventional beef. That's why it's important to include nuts and seeds and whole grains. That's why it's important to include olives and fatty fish. I have a can of sardines that I add randomly to some foods. I know that y'all are meals that y'all are like, oh, that's weird. It is weird. I get it. But I know that I don't feel well when I have a low omega-3 intake. And so this is where we start to incorporate more avocados, fatty fish, olives and olive oil, nuts and seeds in the grass-fed beef. And the crazy part too is that what I was taught in my schooling to become a dietitian was that an eighth of an avocado, an eighth was the serving size of an avocado because it was so high in fat. But I feel like what's messed up with a lot of these diets out there is because the reason why that was recommended as an eighth of an avocado is because the amount of calories it consumes that it has. And this is where so many of my clients kind of get held up because they're like, Nicole, you're wanting me to eat all of these high fat foods at every meal and every snack. That's a lot of added calories. Aren't I going to gain weight? Like, isn't that something I should be concerned about? And my answer is no, because what's going to happen is that most of the time why people are gaining weight is a lack of nutrition. They have too much inflammation on board. And so we're trying to reduce the inflammation. We're giving our hormones the tools to do its job. Our outer layer of our cells have something called a lipid bilayer. It's an outer layer of fat that is needed for our hormones. And so please do not be afraid of the calories coming from fats. We need a serving size at every meal and snack. So this could be something like just a thumb's worth. So this could be a couple olives. This could be half an avocado. This could be a handful of nuts, 2 tablespoons of seeds or 1 tablespoon of seeds at one meal, a serving of fatty fish a couple times a week. There's ways to incorporate that and get those in. So the next nutrient are your B vitamins. So B vitamins are necessary as the body uses them to get or make energy from food. They also help form red blood cells. And remember discussing how anemia can impact or perpetuate hypothyroidism. And 40% of people that are diagnosed with hypothyroidism are B12 deficient. So then you're like, okay, I feel so tired from my thyroid being so low, but actually there also could be a factor in your B12. And this could be a couple of reasons because B12 is absorbed in the small intestine, in the ileum. But sometimes what happens is that it can actually, you have something that absorbs your B12 called the intrinsic factor. And with people that have poor digestive health or as they age, that intrinsic factor can actually start moving. And it's the weirdest thing. It can start moving up and down, and you're just like in the intestines. And so it could be in a different location that it should be, which can make the B12 absorption even harder. And I've also noticed that many people in my practice that have a thyroid disorder also suffer from the MTHFR gene mutation. So this MTHFR gene mutation means that the body is unable to take B vitamins and convert them into their active form, which tends to lead to elevated homocysteine levels, like hello allergies, like when you have a rash or something, or you're chronically sneezing. Because folate and B12 are actually needed in the metabolism of homocysteine. So this all kind of goes and it's connected, right? This is all connected together. And upwards of 55% of people of European descent have the MTHR gene mutation. So this also means that you have a higher tendency to have more depression and anxiety as well because of this gene mutation. You might notice that you have neuropathy or other things kind of going on with your hands and your nerves kind of going on. You're like, what is happening? So really, it is a great idea to get checked out. I am a mother effer person, so I need to take this. And the thing is that not everyone responds with the same dose. I work really, really good at high doses of B12 and and the methylfolate because I have an anxiety disorder, and my anxiety is worse when I do not take those. Some people they take high doses of that, and that cause their anxiety to be worse. So again, we have to kind of play around a little bit with this. And this is something that you'll hear a lot of dietitians in the functional space discussing the, what type and how much to get in there. And so if you're like, well, Nicole, my B12 is really high. It was too high. Then I would actually say, hey, are you in that cyanocobalamin? Are you getting it in the wrong form of it? Because if you're getting it in the wrong form of it and your body's not able to convert it, you're going to have elevated B12 levels, and it's kind of a false elevation. It's B12, it's elevated from the supplement, but it's actually not going to work for you. So it's elevated in the blood, but not within the cells, and not going to work for you. So a couple examples of B vitamins are B vitamin rich foods. The best for your B12 is going to be animal sources. So if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, you really, really need to be closely monitored to your B12. Organ meats are the highest. Go for it if you can. You'll see a lot of thyroid people like recommending organ meats. I'm not one of them, because I'm not going to recommend something that I can't do myself. And I have a hard time eating organ meats. And so I'm giving you other options, but I will put in there, if you can eat organ meats, go for it. It is not my cup of tea. But also at the same time is that we don't want to do large volumes of organ meats, because they do contain they contain fat soluble vitamins, which if we consume too much of it can become toxic in our bodies. So it is best, in my opinion, just to get it through regular, fish and beef if you can. Beets are another really helpful of B vitamins. Remember, we talked about beets earlier and how they support the liver because they're rich in glutathione. And remember, the liver is the main source of how that T4 to T3 conversion happens. So that means if you have a thyroid, or if you're just taking medicine, most medicines are in that T4 form, like your levothyroxine, your Synthroid, are T4. So we then need our bodies to convert it to T3. So eating foods like beets, your fish, and grass-fed beef can help out with that conversion. Leafy greens are another source of your B vitamins, and then also your legumes. But know that people who have digestive issues may need all of their greens, like your leafy greens, your spinach, kale, all of that cooked. And same thing. I mean, no one eats your beans and legumes uncooked, but just kind of keep in mind. All right. So this next one we're talking about are carbohydrates. If you have been following me for any time, you know that I am not a fan of removing carbohydrates. I'm not a fan of having a high rich diet in carbohydrates either, of finding that nice balance. So carbohydrates are our body's preferred energy source. And actually around 60% of our calories should be coming from carbohydrates, or most people know them as carbs. So I know that your jaw is like, what is on the ground right now? Because you're like 60% of our calories should be coming from carbs. And many people associate all carbs as bad, but in reality, it's the processed ones that give us the most trouble. We want to include whole grains, and we'll go over those in just a second. But when carbs intakes are drastically reduced, the conversion of T3 from T4 declines. So this shows us that the body needs a steady increase of or steady intake of carbohydrates to help with that stabilization of our blood sugars. And this also means that we want to pair our carbohydrates properly. So we achieve the steady intake of carbohydrates by eating mostly complex carbs. So basically think when fiber is present. So that's basically when it's in its natural form, like when it's whole grains, right? Brown rice. Last night for dinner, I made wild rice. That had like 10 grams of fiber in it per serving. It was extremely high in carbohydrates. But it is best when carbs are paired with a protein or fat. So this looks like maybe you have your fruit, your apple with some almond butter, or you have some carrots with hummus, or you have, some veggies with avocado, or you add some olives in it, or you have a hard-boiled egg. You do something to help out with that. All right. So the next nutrient we're going to be talking about, and like I said, I'm going flying through these. So if you want to learn more about that, you can definitely check out my book, The Healthy Thyroid Guide, to learn more about all of this, because these are pages from my book. So copper is a trace element, and it's important for the function of many cellular enzymes. One of those being thyroid hormone T4. So copper stimulates the production of T4 and prevents the overabsorption of T4 in the body's cells by controlling the body's calcium levels. So below you see these copper-rich foods. Again, avocado. Crazy how you'll see some of these foods repeated over and over again, which means that, hey, these are the ones we need to get in more often. We have quinoa here, we have almonds, cashews, and some lentils. Okay, so next nutrient, vitamin D. So vitamin D deficiency is extremely common with the recent pandemic. I saw an increase in low vitamin D levels in many of my clients. So if you're not getting outside to receive the sunlight your body's needing, immune health suffers tremendously. Low levels of vitamin D can make you feel tired. It can make you feel run down, impair certain hormone functions, and even decrease immune function. Studies show that vitamin D are significantly lower in hypothyroid patients than in controls, than with people that are just normal healthy. And I also know there is studies that show that low vitamin D levels increase someone's autoimmunity, meaning the ability of your body to attack itself. So I don't want that for you. I don't want that for you. So here are some foods. We have fish is another really good source of vitamin D, mushrooms, sunlight, of course, and eggs. So we want to make sure that we're having enough water. Water is extremely helpful for the gut health, for cognitive function. Y'all, just a 1% decrease, 1% decrease in our water intake can actually cause brain fog. It's helpful for lubrication and so much more. So many people with the thyroid disorders get scared to drink city waters because of one ingredient, fluoride, and city waters tend to have fluoride added to them to protect the teeth from tooth decay. And it should contain around 0.70 milligrams of fluoride per liter. And I checked when I lived in California what it needed to be, and mine was in the normal limits. So I would go and check your state water board for regulations near you. However, with that said, do I drink the city tap water? I actually don't. We use water that's been filtered through reverse osmosis and other filters. And we do this because city water tends to have medications in the water and endocrine disruptors like phthalates. And I talk a lot about this in my book as well, different types of endocrine disruptors. So don't let this scare you. Water is crucial for us, but I do try to, as much as possible, my drinking water is going to be filtered and it's not going to be coming from the city. I do use my city water for small things like when I'm boiling my pastas and stuff like that. So, and obviously washing dishes and washing my hair. So we're not trying to aim for perfection here, and I'm not trying to scare you by any means, but I am saying just to be aware of that. We're trying to be aware of all the things that can be disrupting our hormones. So next we're going to be, I'm going to be talking here in just a couple minutes about, once I get here, we're going to go over kind of step by step, and then I'm going to be sharing some simple recipes that I use. But this is just one of those real things that we want to make sure that we're aware of is just, hey, we have all these foods readily available for us that are going to be helpful with our hormones. We just have to eat them. And that's the major thing, is finding ways to actually incorporate these foods into your day. Some people do best with making smoothies. I have a couple people of my clients who are like regiment, and they make a smoothie every morning, even when it's freezing outside, because that is their best way to get in their nutrition that's quick and fast and get all the tools that they need to get into their body. I have some people that meal prep, some people that have the luxury of cooking as much as possible. So the way I like to think of it is, let's not do a complete like 180 of all of these foods. How about we try to find something like the meals that you typically like to make? How can we grab from that and put it into the meals that you are currently eating? So this is where I'm going to share my screen again with the people on YouTube. And that way we can go over and figure out kind of trying to share my screen that we can go over those thyroid supporting foods a little bit more in depth and with using these recipes that I have on here. So I'm going to share one of my favorite ones. So since we were just talking about smoothies, that's the thyroid supporting berry smoothie. So again, all of these recipes are in my book. So if you want to learn a little bit more about this and have this everything, like I said, it's all found in my book, The Healthy Thyroid Guide. So you can definitely check that out on Amazon. It's available right now. So I want to share, okay, so an example. So let's say you want to have pizza tonight. It's Friday night. We want to have pizza. What if you either make it from scratch, right? So you can have the control and you can add stuff to it. Or what if even if you get one that's frozen from the grocery store, what could you add on top of it, right? So sometimes I'll cut up some onions or some olives and I'll put that on there, or some mushrooms and I'll add that. Maybe you can have a salad on the side and sprinkle some seeds on top of that salad. For maybe you're having spaghetti tonight. And I know all my Italians out there are going to be like, don't do this. But anytime you can think of a way to add in more nutrition, add it in. So something like spaghetti, you can add in spinach, mushrooms, zucchini, and I always add in milled flaxseed. Seriously, that milled flaxseed is such a great way to be able to reduce inflammation, improve gut health, help lower cholesterol, and help support your hormones. And no one ever notices. I'll put it into rice. I'll add it into meatballs. I'll add it into meatloaf. Like, just put it in stuff. No one's gonna know. I'm a big fan of telling people what's in the foods that they're eating. I'm not the big like sneak it in type of person, but at the same time, like, add stuff in, because that's when most people are going to be more accepting when you have a meal that you know you like and you add in a little bit more. So I like to say, like, ask yourself a couple questions, like, what color is missing? And you can start to add into that. You can say, how can I amplify this meal? So these are these questions you can ask yourself when you're recipe hunting. How can I amplify this meal with more color? Do I have a source of healthy fat? Does this meal have a source of complex carbohydrates? Is my protein serving equal to the palm of my hand? We don't want it to be the size of your face, right? And some pro tips to helping you be better in the kitchen. Do not underestimate the power of having a dance party. Even if it's by yourself, freaking have a dance party. Turn on some music and enjoy it. I have heard many people say they don't like to cook, but when they turn on their favorite songs, it makes a world of difference. So please do not underestimate music and how it can positively impact your health. And I mean that from multiple levels. Music, you can do those hertz. You can have like certain sounds to help you sleep. Like, music is super therapeutic and very, very healing. Make it fun experience. If you have kids, try the rainbow game. Say, hey, we're going to decorate this pizza like a rainbow. We do rainbow tacos. We do rainbow pizza. And we use the non-bread pizza. And so that the kids can have their own individual pizzas, and it's just make it fun, right? Picky eaters like to be in control. And so if they're not exposed to a food, then it can be scary. So present a few recipes with a variety of vegetables or highlighting a certain one, then have them help cook that meal. With picky eaters, I know that this is something that a lot of people are like, hey, I'm trying to be healthier. I want to do all these things, but I have my husband's picky eater, or I have a really picky eater kiddo. It's a lot of times it's just exposure. So here's the recipe of the berry smoothie. Something like adding in half a banana that's frozen, half a cup to a cup of blueberries, a tablespoon of nut butter, probiotics. This can be yogurt, or you can even open up your probiotics and dump that in there. A half cup or one cooked beet. And I say cooked beet because raw beet is not going to blend up nice. Or beet juice. Beet powder does not have the same benefits as beet juice or cooked beets. Like, it was basically, there was not much antioxidants found in the beet powder. So don't waste your money on that. Handful of spinach, or you can even do frozen cauliflower as your vegetable, half an avocado, some cinnamon, flaxseed, and some non-dairy milk. And you can even add in other frozen berries too. Yesterday or 2 days ago, I made one with mango and frozen cherries added into my frozen blueberries. And I had everything included here except for the spinach. I had some frozen cauliflower, and it blended up beautifully. I enjoyed it. My kids ended up making one almost identical to it, and they enjoyed it. A turmeric latte. This is something that I didn't talk too much about in this episode so far. And I know we're kind of talking a lot here. We're going deep into this today, but I really feel like this is the one that we really need to understand. So if you're enjoying this, share this with your family and friends, save it, tell people all about it, because thyroid is so complex. And so if they can start to understand, like, oh, all I have to do is understand why I'm eating these foods and how it helps me, I can start adding in these foods to make myself feel better. Blueberry omega-3 bars. This is one of my favorite recipes. So if you are on YouTube, save this recipe. It's so easy to make, or screenshot it, whatever you want to do. But it's one of my favorite ones because you can get walnuts into it. You can get oatmeal, you can get flaxseed, cinnamon. You get so many beneficial foods in there. You can make sweet potato tacos. You can make yogurt or oatmeal parfaits. You can snack using berries, nuts, or you can use dried fruit and some nuts. You can use hummus with some veggies. All right. I have tons. This is a random recipe that I stumbled across because I just had all these random ingredients, and it ended up being one of my most favorite snacks ever. Roasted sweet potatoes, blueberries, and walnuts. I know that sounds so weird, but it is such a freaking yummy snack. Simple and delicious. Some go-to rainbow snacks. You can just, fill up anything, put carrots, bell peppers, broccoli, hummus, nuts, fruit, and a little bit of cheese. And you can have a well-balanced snack that's super easy. Sweet and savory toast, where you have half a avocado, one of the toast can be avocado, and you can have pumpkin seeds on top, or flaxseed or chia seeds. The other one's going to be like almond butter or cashew butter with some berries on top, drizzled with some cinnamon and honey. You can make some veggie bites. I use fermented beets because I don't like the flavors of beets. And so I only eat them when it's in its fermented form. So y'all, there's tons of things that we can do to eat healthy and it be thyroid supporting, and it be easy. So please, 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 the biggest thing that we can do is start to add in more tools into our day, so that way we can now start to see the results that we're wanting to see within ourselves. So if y'all enjoyed this, like I said, this was a lot coming at you. This was a lot that we went over, but if you enjoyed it and you wanted to learn more, check out my book, The Healthy Thyroid Guide. Like I said, it's available on Amazon. We just went over multiple pages of it. And so if you were enjoying what you were reading and hearing on that, grab my book, The Healthy Thyroid Guide. And if you enjoy it and love it, I would appreciate a review. The more reviews I get, the better rankings and more people are able to find it. So I want to make sure that people start to understand how simple we can make eating healthy and how simple we can make having a healthy thyroid if we just start to understand, empower ourselves with why, right? Why are we wanting to eat this way? Then we can start to then see all the changes that we want to see by being consistent with it. And I always tell my clients, like, I'm not doing my job if you have to come back to me. I really, really want you to understand the why behind things, right? So hopefully today's episode really help you understand the why behind supporting a healthy thyroid. Next week, we're going to be talking more about the other side of thyroid supporting foods. And we're going to be talking about our daily habits, our sleep, all the things that we need to make sure that our body, our environment that we're having is in the right place for all of that to actually, all these amazing foods actually work for us. Because I have seen people eat these foods, but are chronically stressed or working out too hard or just working out in the wrong way, not sleeping, and that the food actually not working to the best of what it could be because their environment isn't where it needs to be. So we'll dive more into that next week. It's going to be a lot shorter than this week's episode, but again, I really wanted to make sure that you had all the tools in one place and be able to say, hey, these are the thyroid supporting foods. This is why I needed to eat these thyroid supporting foods. This is how it's helpful for me. And you understand, okay, I don't have to do this complete go gluten free, go on this crazy AIP restricting diet. I'm here to tell you that you can just start with adding in these thyroid supporting foods into your day. Check out my previous episode on those anti-inflammatory that foundation diet, how to how to make your plate a better version for you. And so that your food can actually start working for you. So until next week, you'll have a fantastic, fantastic week. And I will be back next week with another episode of the Nutrition's My Life podcast and YouTube.